The sword, ladies and gentlemen. Has there been a cooler weapon in the entire world, whether it be in fiction or reality? No, I think not. Look, there's a lot of weapons out there, right? You could use crossbows, you could use guns, you could use spears or tridents or daggers, I suppose, but nothing is gonna be cooler than the sword. And when it comes to swords specifically, katanas are the coolest out of that particular group. I don't know why. I don't make the rules, okay? Alright. And what is a shonen manga without really cool swords? Can you think of a single popular shonen manga that doesn't have at least one character using a badass sword? I can't think of a single one. Nope, that one doesn't count. Nope, that one doesn't count either. Nope, that one doesn't count. Okay, that one you might have a point, actually. I have to go back and reread that one. But most of them do, okay? So, in One Piece, we have the Meito grading system. We have this cool system that was set up way back in Logtown of like all these different swords, and there's different ranks, and there's 50 of these ones, and 21 of these ones, and only 12 of the highest grade in the entire story. And for the most part, it was immediately kind of shelved, and we didn't really focus on it all that much. There was a good chunk of time there where we just didn't get any new Meitos, and eventually Oda started revealing Meito grades in, like, the SBS. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, Whitebeard's Naginata, Murakumogiri, here's its name, and here's the status it had the whole time. Oh yeah, Roger's sword, that's called Ace. That's a Saijo as well, right? We find it out every now and then, like when Zoro got Shusui, that was mentioned to be an Owazamono, which, by the way, there was somebody that commented on that one really quick, just talking about Shusui. How the hell is Shusui not a Saijo Owazamono grade sword when it was literally wielded by Ryuma, the man that was given the title of Sword God? When you have the title of Sword God, and he had a Kokuto, he had a black blade, Shusui, and that is not considered one of the 12 highest graded blades in the world. I don't know what the rules are anymore, man. Sometimes people say it's not the quality of the blade as it was forged. It was the swordsman or swordswoman that uses it, and that levels up its prestige. Sukiyaki even kind of mentioned that to Zoro. Like, Zoro can take Enma and level it up, as it were, to make it reach the next level. Enma and Ame no Habakiri are Owazamono, and Sukiyaki was like, maybe you could turn it into a Saijo Owazamono. So there are still some questions exactly how this process works, but in the last SBS, we found out another Saijo. So out of all of the ones that we are certain are in that rank, we now have 5, okay? We got the first one ever revealed, which was Yoru, Mihawk's mighty giant blade with the huge cross guard, shaped like a cross, actually. Really cool. Then, of course, you have Murakumogiri, which is Whitebeard's Naginata. Ace, which is Roger's son, but also the name of his sword, Ace. The Shodai Kitetsu, which is the highest ranked and most cursed out of all of the Kitetsu blades. And now the 5th blade, Yakuza Kasen, wielded by Fujitora Isho, Admiral of the Marines. Not the direction I thought we were going with this. You know, you'd assume that, like, if we were gonna find out some other Saijo Owazamono grade blades, you'd think that, like, the other Yonko would be included here. Like, do you know, it is still not 100% confirmed that Griffin is a Saijo. I mean, it is. I mean, we all know it is. It's just not officially declared as a Saijo yet. All right, but it most certainly is. But beyond that, I was thinking maybe, like, if you said Big Mom's Napoleon was a Saijo, I'd be like, okay, I mean, like, it's a little weird because she keeps it in her hat and it's the power of her soul fruit and it's a homie that has, like, sentience and stuff. But yeah, I guess, honestly, you could take a sword and give it a soul and then it would have a you know, personality, and you could also allow it to turn into a hat. I'm not really sure how Big Mom's ability works, but if you were going to say Napoleon was a Saijo, I'd go ahead with that. Kaido's was even surprising because Kaido's Kanabo, Hasaikai, is actually not ranked at all. And it's not just because it's a Kanabo, because you might be thinking it's just bladed weapons. No, any weapon could be rated in the Meito grading system. It just typically is swords, but even then it's like, we have different kinds of swords, like katanas mainly, but also you have Durandal, which is Cavendish's rapier, so that's ranked. And then, of course, even, Whitebeard with the Naginata, that's ranked as well. But even a non-bladed weapon like Kaito's Kanabo could be ranked. It's just that his is not. However, it is also mentioned that if, Kaito's Kanabo were to fall in the hands of somebody else, like Kaito dies and somebody gets his Kanabo, that is going to be a legendary weapon. You could still get some money for that at the auction, Kaito falls. Did Kaito have the Kanabo when he fell into the volcano? I can't remember. If he didn't, some random guy in Wano just picks up and says, all right, men, we need 5 of us to carry this thing into town and sell it. A giant Kaito's Kanabo. All right. But no, it was Fujitora's weapon. Fujitora's simple sword. It uses it as a walking cane mostly because he's the blind swordsman or the blind samurai, right? And some interesting things about the blade that we also learn about. It was made by Fugetsu Kisaburo, who is a member of the Fugetsu clan, obviously, from the Kibi region of Wano. We don't know anything about Kusaburo. The only member we knew was the former daimyo of the Fugetsu clan that died along with the daimyo of the Uzuki clan, and then also there was Mr. So-and-so, who is Ushimaru Shimosuke, who was Zoro's grunkle, actually. Yeah, Ushimaru was Zoro's great-uncle, his grunkle. So they all died defending Yamato to get Yamato out of the cave and everything like that. So that was that whole backstory there, right? So Fugetsu family, very important family from Wano that stretches back, all the way to the Void Century, okay? And this has sparked a lot of people in the comments to say, well, that means Fujitora must be from Wano. He's got to be from Wano now, right? And I would say it definitely has connections to Wano. Might not have been actually from there because I looked at the timelines of some stuff, and some interesting things we're going to mention here in a second. Fujitora might not actually have been there, but his parents almost definitely were, okay? So also, Fujitora's design in general, like the blind samurai, as I mentioned, he gives vibes that he was from Wano, okay? Like all the other admirals, he's based off of classic film actors and in Japan, and in his case, it's Shintaro Katsu, and Shintaro Katsu appears in a movie, Tale of Zatoichi, where he plays a blind samurai, or actually I think he's a blind masseuse that used to be a swordsman. I don't think he was a samurai. He was a swordsman, and then he became a masseuse, and he was hired by the Yakuza to do some work for them, and he was like blind, and most people took advantage of him, but he's like a serious badass. It's kind of like in that first scene where we see Fujitora at Dressrosa, where he's in the gambling house and members of Doflamingo's crew are messing with him because he's blind and he can't see the roulette wheel. So they're like, oh, sorry, man. Oh, yeah, 32 black. Oh, it's red. Yeah, sorry. Oh, 47 red. Ah, it's black again, man. Sorry, you just have crap luck. And Fujitora's like, oh my goodness, I'm just not my day. And then Luffy just walks over and is like, yeah, hey, old man, they're cheating you. And Fujitora immediately like flips from like kind old man, like grandpa, to be like, how dare you? And like slices them all up and uses... Actually, here's the thing. Fujitora doesn't use his blade that much as a sword. He has. Like when the bird cage was closing in, he armament hockeyed up the Yakuza Katsu, and Yakuza Katsu, that sounds like a food dish that you get from the Yakuza. I don't know. Well, anyway, yeah, Yakuza Kasen takes out his blade and like blocks the bird cage and is like holding it back and stuff like that. So he does use it. He clashed with Zoro a few times, and Zoro was like, this guy is strong, right? But typically he uses the blade in conjunction with the Zushi Nomi, the gravity power. So he like takes out his blade and like fires up a gravity bubble, and then a meteor comes down and crushes everybody, right? Pretty cool powers that Fujitora has. Fujitora, here's the thing. Here's the question. This is always a question I got, all right? Everybody, right? Pretty cool powers that Fujitora has. Fujitora, here's the thing. Here's the question. This is always a question I got, all right? How devastating? How much blood could Fujitora spill? How much property could he destroy if he just did not have any morality? It's always a question, like when you have a character that's really strong, but is also like kind and benevolent, and you definitely don't want to cross Fujitora because he will just collapse an entire house on you, but he has morals, he has ethics, he has a code of conduct, right? Take all that away from him, How much damage could he bring with his powers and his swordsmanship and his hockey? His observation is off the charts. He can, like, sense people around him as, like, auras because he's blind. He, like, you know, destroyed one of his senses, so now his, like, sixth sense, his observation is through the roof. He also has armament, too, right? Like, a lot of damage. It also, another hypothetical gets brought up, like, how much damage could Santa Claus cause in the world if he was not this supernatural being of, like, Christmas and love and gift-giving and kindness? If you just took that away from Santa Claus, how strong is he? You know, like, okay, pretty damn powerful, I would imagine, right? Okay. So, 55 years ago in Wano, we have Shimosuke Kozaburo alongside a bunch of other people deciding to leave Wano. All right, now Wano was isolated at this point. It was illegal to leave, but they did anyway. So Kozaburo was the one that forged the Enma. He also made the Wado Ichimonji, a bunch of other really, really strong swords in his youth, okay? So he leaves with a group of people illegally. They managed to get all the way to the East Blue. A very trying journey that was perilous, I am sure, and I hope we learn more about it at some point, but Oda revealed a lot of this information in an SBS, so I don't have my hopes high on that one. But anyway, they managed to get to the East Blue 55 years ago. They founded Shimosuke Village in the east. Now, there was some people already living in that region. They were being attacked by mountain bandits. The people from Wano showed up. They cut down all the bandits, and they kind of forged a village with the people from Wano and the people in the east that were already living there. But not every single person stayed in Shimosuke Village. I think it was around 22 people that left Wano stayed in the village, and everybody else just kind of went to other places in the east. They might have made it to other parts in the Grand Line or in the South Blue, or hell, maybe the North or West Blue. Who knows? They just wanted to see the world, I suppose, right? I think the reason Oda did that, we're like, oh, not everybody stayed in Shimosuke Village, some people left, was because of Tashigi. Tashigi is most certainly going to be discovered to be like a cousin of Kuina or something like that, and it's like she was from somewhere else in the east. Zoro didn't grow up with Tashigi, but somewhere else, you know, the family lines continued, okay? Now, that was 55 years ago Shimosuke Village was founded. Do you know how old Fujitora is? Unless Oda retcons it, but I don't think he has to. Fujitora, Isho, is 54 years old. I think that's a slam dunk for the timeline right there. They settle in the village. Somebody, a member of the Fugetsu clan, maybe. It might have been Fugetsu Kisaburo, for all we know. We know Kozaburo, he was a bladesmith. He left. Maybe Kusaburo, I say Kisaburo. Maybe Kisaburo was like his friend. That was like, they were like sword-making buddies, okay? And they were like blacksmiths and stuff. And they're like, hey, I want to get out of Wano. Do you want to leave too? And he's like, yeah, I kind of want to see the world. All right, let's get out of here. And they all left together. So they leave and they get to Shimosuke Village and they found the settlement and everything like that. And Kisaburo falls in love with somebody from the east and they have a child a year later after the village was founded, and that was Isho. And we don't know his last name. We just know his name is Isho. It might be Isho Fugetsu. And that would be pretty crazy. Just like how Koshiro, who is Kozaburo's son and Zoro Sensei, Kuina's dad, he is Koshiro Shimosuke. So maybe it's, you know, Isho Fugetsu. Now, maybe Isho was not born in Shimosuke Village. I was getting ahead of myself there. Could have been the same thing with, like, another family that branched off in another region. Although, you know, there really is no reason why Fujitora could not be born in the East unless Oda confirmed that he wasn't born in the East. Hold on, let me pull that up really quick because it actually does reveal their origin. Okay, their origin was on the Grand Line. Okay, well, you know what? There is still very likely that that could have happened, okay? Maybe Fujitora was born somewhere in the Grand Line. Also, this stuff is from the Vivre cards, which is accurate, but also Oda can kind of change things if he has to. Because there could have been a separate group of Wano that split off from Shimosuke, and they ended up in the Grand Line somewhere, like in Paradise, like in the first half of the Grand Line, and that's where Fujitora grew up. But anyway, that's probably where he got the sword. His parents were from Wano. His parent might have been the guy that actually forged the damn thing and gave it to him, right? And also, I find something very interesting about the exact shape and the design of Fujitora's blade, Yakuza Kasen, because it's very simple. It's a Shiko Mizue. It's just a sword mounting, a very basic sword mounting. There's nothing extravagant about it, but that really does fit Fujitora's, like, aesthetic. He's not the kind of gaudy guy that's going to be swinging around a blade like Yoru. Yoru, I love it, but it's very ostentatious. It has giant gold inlaid gems and diamonds and shit all over it, like rubies and sapphires, and, he's swinging it around. It looks really, really cool and ornate, but that's not really Fujitora's style, right? So disclaimer, don't know anything about the blade making process. I am not an expert swordsmith. I don't know a lot about katanas other than the fact they look really cool, right? Okay. But I'm assuming when you make a sword, or like the ranking of a blade, the ranking is going to be on the blade, right? Like, it's not going to be the scabbard. The scabbard might look really cool. It might be carved out of the finest wood, out of the most rarest mahogany out there in the world. It might have a really cool design on it. It might have really cool metal inlaid stuff on it. But I don't think that's going to be what the ranking process is on. I also don't think the ranking process is going to be on the pummel or the grip, the hilts, or the tsuba, the crossguard, or anything like that. I imagine when you're ranking a blade for the Meito, it's going to be the blade. This part of the blade. Now, not to say you don't skimp on the guard or the tsuba or the guard or the hilt or anything like that. This has to be, up to snuff as well. But I'm just saying that, like, if you're making a blade, you're gonna forge the metal part first, the blade first, and then you add all this stuff later, right? It's not that it's an afterthought. I would imagine the blade is made first. So what if Kisaburo Fugetsu, hold up, I got it, forges Yakuza Kasen, and it's just the blade, and he hasn't even, designed the hilt or the tsuba or what it's going to look like yet, and so he makes it in just this basic Shikomizue kind of design, just basic sword mounting, okay, nothing fancy, no tsuba, guard is really simple, the hilt is really simple, it's just in a simple little wooden cane kind of design, right? And maybe never got around to finishing it in that capacity, or that's all it was, or it was meant to be stored in that way, because a lot of times blades are stored in those mountings for long periods of time, right? And so that might have been a situation. Maybe if Kisaburo maybe did not go to the east or did not travel with Kozaburo, maybe he just stored the sword indefinitely and gave it to him, and Kozaburo had it, or he gave it to somebody else or something like that. Anyway, by the time Issho finally got his hands on it, he was like, it's not ostentatious, it's not extravagant or ornate, but it's good enough for him. This is all he really needs in a blade. It fits his personality really well. So, in case you're curious, like, how could a simple blade like this that has really nothing fancy about it be a Saijo? Well, it's not about the scabbard or the tsuba, it's about the blade, and the blade was forged by an expert swordsmith, probably one of the best from the country where they make the best swords, and he was probably one of the best of them, okay? So that's what really matters at the end of the day. Not really, it's like, don't judge a book by its cover in the most, badass sword katana kind of way, right? All right, that's basically it there. And also, it does add a little bit of difference. Not every single Saijo needs to be like Whitebeard's Morokumo Giri, right? Even Ace, we're talking about Roger's sword, not Porcus D. Ace, but even Ace really just kind of looks like a regular sort of like cutlass kind of thing. It has like a full handguard sort of thing, and that's really it. It doesn't really have anything else about it. Yoru is the one that looks the most extravagant. Like, you look at Yoru and you could tell right away, that's one of the best damn swords in the entire world, whoever made that thing, okay? And even the Shodai isn't really all that fancy, except for the fact it can change size and also apparently lose its guard whenever Ethan goes into his giant Bakotsu form. It could do that. That's really cool. But yeah, other than that, it's nice to have just very simple kind of like blade that you wouldn't, at first glance, you'd look at that thing and you wouldn't think that's one of the 12 strongest blades in the entire world. But it certainly is, right? Okay. So yeah, I think Fujitora's family could be from Wano. I don't think he is from Wano personally. And then maybe he grew up in another village in the Grand Line. And then he, at some point, saw all of the evil in the world. It might have been actually because if his family was from Wano, and they were very isolated. Now, this was before Orochi and Kaido showed up. This was 55 years ago, right? So it was before all that happened. But it might be Fujitora's parents passed down, like, very kind of like Wano traditions to him. You know, like, this is how you present yourself in public. This is how you dress. This is how you treat others. You have respect, and you have honor, and you have dignity, and you have, you know, morality and stuff like that. You know, this is the way you treat others. And maybe Fujitora grew up kind of isolated with just his parents or maybe the other people from Wano kind of teaching him these life lessons. And then he grows up and goes out into the world and sees just, you know, debauchery and blood and gore and war in the most terrifying way, and piracy and all these awful things happening out there. And that was like an overload for Fujitora. Like, maybe like everything he learned from his family from Wano. Yeah, Wano wasn't the best place ever. Even before Orochi, there were issues. But like, this is like, oh, this is not honorable. This is not respect. This is awful. These are like pirates pillaging villages. And even the Marine, he might have seen the Marines do some weird stuff, right? It's implied he has some kind of connection to Akainu, right? Like, they know each other previously. So I don't know, because he eventually did end up joining the Marines through a draft. But I still wonder, because he blinded himself out of the terrors or the horrors he saw in the world. So what was the thing that Fujitora saw that tipped him over the edge and it made him blind himself? Like, there must have been something really fucked up for him to do that, okay? Like, yeah. At any rate, it happened, right? And he probably spent his days out in the wilderness away from people, because he was probably like, I don't want to be part of society at large if this is the kind of stuff that goes down there. And eventually he got drafted. He got drafted, you know how it goes, right? He got drafted in the Marines and became an admiral and everything like that. But he still kept his morals about him. He's still like, he has blind justice, as it were. Horrible joke, but anyway, you know, he's like, okay. And at Dressrosa we see that, where no, the Marines messed up here. We have to apologize and bow down to the king of Dressrosa. We failed these people. We should have been the one to deal with this Doflamingo issue years ago, and we didn't. And I am not going to pass the buck to other people like, oh, it wasn't the Marines. The Marines actually saved the day. No, Fujitora's like, no, we messed up. We're apologizing. Men, I order all of you to bow down before King Riku in apology. Right? And everyone in Akainu got really pissed about that one. It's one of those things that's like, dude, you're making us look bad. And Fujitora is like, good. Good. The Marines failed here. They should be looked at as like a failure and maybe do better next time, right? And Akainu, Sakazuki's like, oh, you don't get it. You don't get it, man. No. You know, and so Fujitora has these morals and stuff that don't really mesh too well with the world at large, especially ruled by like Im and the Gorosei and everything like that. But yeah, that's the origin of him, and I can understand him being connected to Wano because of those values that he, right? Well, anyway, yeah. That's the video, and what's going to be the next Saijo? Who's gonna have the next Saijo Wazumono grade sword? Okay, there's a couple that I think, honestly, like, Shanks has a Saijo, so that's the 6th one right there. Let's just do that as a gimme, okay? I am gonna actually say that Big Mom's Napoleon is a Saijo. I will say that just because we gotta fill these out. We have another 6 or so to go. So I was like, all right, she's number 7. We could just give Big Mom a Saijo. It's fine. Also, like, her whole thing is like, she has this big information network and she collects all these presents and prizes at all of her tea parties that she held all the time. Dude, I can imagine somebody in the underworld giving Big Mom a Saijo one time, and then she takes the Saijo sword Napoleon and makes it into a homie, and then that might be the origin of that. She might have been gifted a blade and she turned it into Napoleon, right? I could kind of see that, right? So that's 7. What else do we got? Shiki is gonna show up, and he has 2 swords. Wouldn't that be, I think it's like Oto and Kogarashi or something. Wouldn't that be crazy if it's like, oh no, Shiki has 2 Saijos? Maybe Rox had a blade or something. Rox had a sword, and that was probably a Saijo at some point. But let me know down below what's going to be the next one and what's it going to be called, because they have really cool names. You know, this one, Yakuza Firing Line. That's pretty damn sweet. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out. Remember, swords are cool.